At a time when we all seem to be baking more, and a season when baking is almost a universal tradition, we're all delighted to share this special event on Egyptian baking. Your participation today supports the sister cities of Baltimore, especially our Baltimore, Luxor, Alexandria Sister City Committee, committed to fostering international cooperation, understanding, and exchange in all areas of our daily lives. We facilitate online conversations between librarians and children in Alexandria, Egypt, and the US. We organize cultural events like this one, and we work with our other sister city partners on events to share art, discuss diversity and immigration, and expand international business opportunities. And I'm sure you'll get some emails from time to time letting you know about some of these other opportunities you can join. Today, we're touching our taste buds with chefs Amy Riolo and Aida Mady. As we proceed, please post your questions in the chat, and you'll find a variety of useful links in the chat as well. First up is Amy Riolo, who has been called a true guardian of the inherent goodness of the Mediterranean lifestyle. She is a former chair of our BLASCC committee, and now is an award-winning best-selling author, chef, television personality, and an expert on culinary culture, travel, and history. And today she's traveling on your screen to Egypt, and I welcome you, Amy. First, I'm going to make sure that we can see you. We have one more person to admit. And if everyone else could turn off your video and your mics are already off. If you could turn off your video, we'll be able to see just Amy. All right, everyone should be able, if you're not seeing Amy, let me know in the chat and we'll figure that out. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you so much, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. John, it's great to see you, and it's such an honor for me to be here today with you, Karen, and Tharwat, and Aida, and just to bring light some of these wonderful holiday traditions that have their roots in Egypt, to be together and to be talking about such a fun topic and, you know, such a warm, inviting topic for this time of year. So I thank you all for organizing this. And for everybody who's participating today, I really want to thank you for supporting the sister cities. And, you know, this is a cause that's very important to me for many years. I believe in all of their endeavors, and I'm grateful that, you know, Tharwat and Karen are doing so many wonderful things to bring these ideas forward, and many of you who are watching also. So thank you all so much. I love Egypt. I fell in love with the cuisine in the late 1990s. My family was originally Southern Italian, and when I had the chance to travel to Egypt for the first time, I really didn't know what to expect in terms of food. And there were there was one English language Egyptian cookbook at the time. It was very hard to follow for somebody who didn't already know Egyptian food, because it used a lot of terminology that is foreign to people who have not been to Egypt yet. So I didn't have a whole lot of good luck with it. And I'd read in travel guides that Egypt had a lot to offer, but food wasn't one of them. So I didn't have a lot of very good expectations. And then I went to Egypt, of course, and I found completely the opposite to be true. So long story short, you know, I started looking at these dishes and wondering, you know, oh, this is similar to this particular dish in Italy or in Sicily or in Greece. And I wonder, you know, how come it's like this in Egypt and how come it's like that in Italy? So this led me on a lifelong, you know, chase and pursuit to understand the history and culture of these dishes, which then gave me a much much deeper understanding of Egyptian, Islamic, Coptic history and culture as well. So in my book, which is going to be on the screen when we show the PowerPoint, you'll actually see, this is my second edition of a book that took me 10 years to write, along with Egyptologists, archaeologists, doctors, and people who are interested in Egyptian food, because I included the entire timeline of Egyptian culinary history, which had never been written before. But when I first started working in Egypt, there was Egyptian food and there was Egyptian history, and nobody fused them. And so this was my work. And so I'm happy to share this with you and to be talking about this topic today. And Karen, whenever you're ready to switch over to the slides, that would be great. And I'm happy to take Q&A afterwards. There we go. Okay, so we can go right away to the first slide. So this is our title, Egyptian Cookie, Spice, and Culinary History. This is going to be a brief culinary history, everyone, with a little bit highlighting the spices and the cookies. If you want the full culinary history, which takes a little bit longer, this is something that I developed for the Embassy and for the Library of Congress. You can go to the Library of Congress website and Google Understanding Egyptian Cuisine and Culture and my name, and it will come up. I have another one on Library of Congress also called The History of Arab Cuisine, which is interesting because it puts everything within the Middle East within context of food. So you might like those too. But I think it's important when we start to understand that, Egyptian cuisine isn't just within those modern nationalistic borders. This is a type of food that has also influenced the cuisine of these following modern day countries. So Lebanon, Sudan, the Arabian Peninsula, France, Italy, India, Spain, and even American cuisine have all been influenced by the cuisine of Egypt. And this is a picture of Karnak in Luxor, and you all can see the reflecting pool and the little obelisk off in the corner, very much like the National Mall, And so these styles, there's a common theme where the Egyptian, especially the ancient styles, were copied and replicated and absorbed by the Greeks and then the Romans, and then they played part in our American history. And the food is very similar. Not every food follows that path, but there are some common themes that we can see. So we go to the next slide. This slide talks about the Nile. And it's impossible to talk about ancient Egypt in terms of its power and all of its glory without talking about the Nile. So Karen, if you could forward to the next one. Yeah, this one shows some museum exhibits where they have different types of artifacts that were found in the Nile and that were actually symbolic of what would take place during the Nile. So the Nile was viewed as sacred by the ancient Egyptians, and it was also kind of the highway of ancient Egypt, right? Because whether you're coming from the Mediterranean or the Red Sea, you needed to get things through Egypt. The Nile was your main fairway. Also, the Nile flooded twice a year. So because it flooded naturally twice, it provided all of the irrigation that the ancient Egyptians needed in order to feed their crops. So they didn't have to have, extensive amounts of labor. They didn't have to develop any new types of irrigation. They could do it all with what the Nile naturally gave them. And so this was very important. And these wooden model boats were types of boats that would be placed in tombs during the funerary processions. So they also wanted to ensure that transport would be great for people in the afterlife. And so the Nile was even brought into the afterlife with people. And if we go to the next slide, we can look at, we can kind of just get a little bit of appreciation for what and how far the ancient Egyptian empire spanned. So all the way through Egypt and what is northern modern day Sudan, into the Arabian Peninsula, up through the Levant, all the way over into what would be modern day Iraq, and also up into the Levant area, Lebanon, Palestine, those places in the Middle East, Cyprus. These were all part of the ancient Egyptian empire. So when we look at those cuisines, there will always be similarities because a lot of things were similar and those patterns were laid all the way at that time. And we can go to the next one, which shows lentils being worth their weight in gold in antiquity. And this is, kind of hard to believe, because when we think about lentils, we think of them as poor man's food. We think of something which are, easy and cheap. But in Italy, we always eat lentils on New Year's. And a lot of people think it's because they look like coins, and so they symbolize prosperity. But no, they actually were coins, and that's why they symbolize prosperity. So I want to promote the eating of lentils, because they're great for our health. They're worth their weight in gold in terms of our health, but also that much of ancient Egypt's wealth came from lentils and also from wheat. And if we go to the next slide, we can start talking about spices right away. So already we have a lot of evidence, not to say that they weren't used prior to this, but we have evidence from 3000 before the Common Era, so about 5,000 years ago, the amount of spices that were used in ancient Egypt. And what's cool is, these spices were very expensive and hard to come by. So culinarily speaking, they weren't used in the world that much yet that they are now, but they were used in embalming. And as we can imagine, to embalm a body with a spice takes a lot more than it does to make a cookie recipe or to make another kind of recipe. So Egypt really had access to a huge amount of spices. And the spices later on, and the trade of the spices, would fuel a lot of other Mediterranean countries. So already we found in Ramses II's tomb from 2800 before the Common Era, a lot of black pepper. Black pepper was so important that in 80 before the Common Era, so many thousands of years later, the city of Alexandria was wealthy due to its black pepper exports. And they actually had a gate to the city that was called the Pepper Gate. Well, in 80 before the Common Era, obviously this was when, the Roman Empire was really in power, and they would get a lot of the pepper from Egypt. Pepper, black pepper, was seen as a symbol of wealth. Think of it like modern day truffles, not the chocolate truffles, but the truffles that come from the ground that we get from France or from Italy. And this black pepper was used in a lot of recipes by the emperors and in ancient Rome to kind of show their wealth. So if you ever look back to ancient Roman cuisine, we will find heavy doses of pepper. They were getting it all from Egypt. And the Egyptians got it from a land called Punt, which Hatshepsut, who was the female leader of Egypt in about 1500 before the Common Era, was importing a lot of spices from Punt. And this is the modern day area that would be Somalia, Yemen, Ethiopia, those areas. And the next slide, now as we start to get a little bit more into baking, talks about the type of pastry shops and bakeries that there would have been in ancient Egypt. So Karen, you can turn to the next one. And you'll see a picture of a relief here from tombs dating back to about 3200 to, these types of tombs could be found from 3200 to about 2700 before the Common Era. But they always show different types of bakeries. There were the very, middle of the road bakeries that were for the commoners. And then there were the royal bakeries that would have been for the pharaohs. And it was really interesting to see what was going on in those royal bakeries, because it wasn't very different from what takes place today. I mean, they had very finely milled wheat. They had, they were using things to sweeten the cakes and the breads. They were using different shapes, and they had kind of an assembly line style that we would do today. Bread was very, very important, and obviously bread was the predecessor to our cookies. The ancient Egyptian word for life, aish, is still the modern word for bread today, which shows the importance of it. And the pyramid laborers were rationed 5 pounds of bread per person per day. So that just goes to show you how important the bread was. And of course, Egypt itself and most of the Maghreb and North Africa was the breadbasket of the Roman Empire. So they were getting a lot of wheat and bringing it and building the Roman Empire with this North African and especially Egyptian wheat. And also our birthday cake tradition, and that idea of doing that started with the pharaohs, because every year on the pharaoh's birthday, these bakeries would make for him buns that were seasoned and shaped in a round form, and they would be given to him every year to commemorate his birthday. So eventually the buns shaped with a cake, and it became our modern birthday cake. And if we go to the next slide, this, excuse the exposure, it was taken in the Agricultural Museum in Cairo. you can see some of the forms of the ancient breads that they found and that they replicated today, which, the beautiful thing about bread and also some of these cookies is that the shapes and the forms and our creativity has not changed too much. And if we use good quality ingredients, we could pretty much make the same thing that they were making in ancient times. The only thing that has changed significantly is industrialization. And so, as a result, less healthful ingredients. And if we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about the Nubians. So it's impossible to talk about the different facets of Egyptian cuisine and a different culture without talking about the Nubians, because Nubia is a land that spans between southern Egypt and northern Sudan nowadays. And this culture had 27 kings who were all of sub-Saharan African descent, who ruled ancient Egypt for nearly a century. And so their influence is very strong with food. And if you ever go to Aswan or different places where there's large Nubian communities in Egypt, you can see a lot of designs, a lot of foods, a lot of things that we thought were, just kind of Egyptian, or we thought were just kind of Arabesque, that were taking place in Nubia long beforehand. And the next slide shows some of their foods: the dried dates, the dried hibiscus, some Nubian spices with traditional Nubian designs, the karkideh, or the hibiscus drink, type of bread that's made in Nubia in the sun. And also there's a type of date-filled cookie that is a very ancient predecessor of the one that Aida's going to make for us today, that the Nubians now call makrud, which is very similar to this one. So that would have been a rudimentary form of the one that we're going to eat today. The next slide shows Alexandria and the Greeks. And there's a common misconception, when we think about the Greeks in Egypt, a lot of people think that they came to conquer or that they just came and invaded, and that wasn't true. The Greeks and the Egyptians lived peacefully and coexisted cross-culturally for many years, so much so that they often absorbed a lot of each other's styles of dress, styles of worship, styles of eating. And that's because King Amasis, who was one of the pharaohs, invited the Greeks and he actually built a city for them on the Nile called Nakrautis. So many Greeks came came into Egypt at this time and left their influence long before the Ptolemies came hundreds of years later. And the next slide shows a mosaic of Alexander the Great, and of course Alexandria is named after him. But we can still see some of these influences of Greece and Egypt today, and simpler things like the simsimea, which the Greeks called pastelli, which is an ancient sesame seed dessert. Sesame seeds were very popular in the ancient world because they were abundant. They were full of niacin and protein. They were a great ingredient for people who maybe weren't eating a lot of meat in other times, but they were also delicious, and they symbolized fertility. So you see these sesame seeds during feast days, during special pagan days. It eventually fused with the Christian holidays and then with the Muslim holidays. And so we would see a lot of different sesame seed desserts and special occasions in the Mediterranean for that reason. And then if we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about the Silk Road, which started in 2006 before the Common Era. Each of these different colored lines represent different routes that were taken from the Mediterranean or the Middle East all the way to China and the Spice Islands to bring these wonderful goods back. And the blue is the sea route. The orange is the main Silk Road. The red is the connector to the Silk Road. But regardless, whichever one you're looking at, they're all leading in and around Egypt. And so all of this type of, global commerce was taking place thousands of years ago. And so a lot of influence came into Egypt and went out of Egypt very, very early on. And the next slide shows one of the ways in which we can actually document and tell what was going on in Egypt culinarily at this time. And it's a Roman cookbook, an ancient Roman cookbook called De Re Culinaria, which meant on cooking. And it was written by Apicius in Latin, and then has then been translated into Italian and French and English. And Apicius, probably more cooking schools and more names of restaurants are from his honor than any other culinary figure in history. And that's because he wrote the first for many years what we thought was the first Western cookbook. And his book documents a lot of what was going on in the ancient Roman world. He was a poor writer and clearly a gourmand, but he had a very limited budget. And so he actually ended up committing suicide because he had the palate of an emperor, but he on a writer's budget. So it didn't really work out for him. But we consider him to be the father of all gourmands. And in this picture, I have the prawns because the book talks about things like, when the Romans should go and fish off the coast of North Africa in order to get the best prawns. He talks about the bread from Alexandria in his book and Numidian chicken, which gives gives a nod to the North African quarters of the Roman Empire and things like that. So we have a lot of examples about this Roman occupation of Egypt through Apicius. And if we go to the next slide, we see, again, modern cookie bakeries. This is the first time that we really see the cookies being made in Egypt, that we have evidence of that is during the Roman occupation. They were made before, but we don't see them documented in Word documents in books. And they were made by Egyptians. And the Romans would then take these ideas and bring them back to Rome. And one of them is this recipe for biscotti, as we know them in Arabic, or biscotti in Italian, the twice-baked cookies or the rusks that are common all over the Mediterranean now, were something that the ancient Romans learned about in North Africa, which is where they were going to get their wheat. Then they brought them back into the Roman Empire. And of course, America knows these cookies as an Italian cookie, but they were actually very prevalent in ancient Egypt and still common in all cultures of the Mediterranean today. And the next slide talks us to a little bit about the notion of spices, some of them being ancient, some of them being medieval, but why they're still popular today. And, in the ancient world and also in medieval times, these spices were used as common cures. Nowadays, a lot of doctors are looking back to these ancient medical texts, whether they be Egyptian or Roman or Greek or medieval, and studying them. And then they look at the different spices and they find, okay, that still has relevance today. And then they put it out in the form of supplements. And I can't tell you, since I started studying Egyptian food and Egyptian spices, how many things I've seen come on the market by American doctors in the United States and be sold at the Vitamin Shop and Whole Foods and Mom's Organic Market and things like that. And they're kind of taken for granted now in Egypt, but they're really enjoying a renaissance in Europe and in the United States. So I highly recommend people to consume good quality spices because they can really be part of a healthful, not only a delicious, but also a healthful diet. So here we're talking a little bit about nigella seeds, which are also known as black cumin, which are also known as habat al-baraka, and Aida's going to work with them later. Habat al-baraka means the blessed seed in Arabic, and this is a seed or a spice that's mentioned in the Quran. It's mentioned in the Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, and it talks about them being a cure for everything except for death. So one time I was giving a lecture at the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, and I said that, and a doctor said, wait a minute, Amy, be careful with that because there are many different varieties and you have to know which is the right one before you just tell people to take this. Well, the good news is since then, they have isolated which is the right one. You can check out my Twitter feed lately. There's been a lot of talk about this. And Western doctors have actually found the efficacy of habat al-baraka in treating COVID. So it's a very powerful, I would call it a elixir, a very kind of common use, cure-all for many, many illnesses, and can be part of a good health regimen. So it's something, I take a supplement of habat al-baraka every day, but I also use it on a lot of different things. It's traditional in the Mediterranean, used on breads, used in cookies, and different types of things like that. It can be sweet or savory use, and people take it as a tonic, as a syrup in a medicine, or as different things. So you might want to check that out with your doctor and see if it's an option for you. Also, anise seed, yansun. Egyptians love to drink yansun to kind of calm the stomach, morning sickness, to sleep at night. You can have a yansun tea. And we use it, of course, in cookies and biscotti and in different things like that. Cumin is a spice that you'll find a lot in Egypt, either in the seed or in ground form. And by using cumin seed, if you're cooking beans or legumes or anything like that, you put a little bit of cumin seed in with them as they cook, it will really help to take away the digestive issues that some people have when consuming those items. Also, it's very good for babies that have colic. A lot of people will boil up cumin in water, let it get cold, and then give it to babies in bottles for that reason. And the natural, what I believe to be the spouse or the counterbalance of cumin in the spice world is coriander. So coriander is dried cilantro. Cilantro, both the fresh and dried form, are very, very good for removing toxins from the body. They're great detoxifiers. And also the sweet kind of balmy flavor of the coriander matches very well with the harsh aggressiveness of the cumin. So when you're cooking, you can balance them both out together. And then, of course, cinnamon. Most of us don't need a big explanation about cinnamon, but Egyptian cinnamon is wonderful because it's the pure Ceylon cinnamon. It's not the cassia mixed cinnamon that they sell in the United States. So if you ever have cinnamon in Egypt, you'll notice it's a little bit sweeter, mellower, less abrasive. And pure cinnamon is very good for many things. It's anti-inflammatory, but also it helps to balance out our sugar levels. So great ingredient to use in a lot of things. And caraway, which is the world's oldest spice, you can still find in a lot of Egyptian spice blends and things like that, and has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties as well. Cardamom, usually in Egypt, I use the green cardamom. So the green cardamom pods, you break them open and inside you have the little black seeds. Those are ground to give us what we call ground cardamom. But when you use cardamom, you want to make sure that if you can use it from the pods and grind it yourself or use it really quickly, it's better, because cardamom is one of those spices like black pepper that has a lot of volatile oils in it. So if we leave it ground and leave it like hanging around too long, it will lose its aroma. Cardamom is the second most expensive spice in the world, and Egyptians like to use it in the coffee. Egyptian coffee is actually what we call in the world Turkish coffee with the cardamom added to it. It's very common in Egypt. Also in sweets and in different types of teas and in rice puddings and things like that, you will find cardamom. Mint is very widely used, and of course, mint is great for our health. It has a lot of vitamins, nutrients in it, both in the fresh and dried form. Turmeric and ginger, which are also great for digestion, great anti-inflammatory spices, used a lot in Egypt. Sesame, we already talked about, and cloves are also very important because many people take cloves for granted, but cloves are very powerful in terms of antiseptic properties and antibacterial properties. So great to use as a tisane, great to use in terms of combating infection or anything like that. And then salt and pepper. I don't have enough time to go into salt and pepper exclusively. I do have some television segments on salt if you Google them. But I recommend to people to really experiment with different types of salt and different types of pepper, because since we use them on our everyday food, different types, there's a world of difference between the different types, and we can experience different flavors and coax different flavors out of them by not just using the same old ones. So the next slide talks about the Persian influence in Egypt, which is very important for cookies and for sweets and for food, maybe not so much for other things. But, when the Persians came to Luxor, they desecrated about a lot of what was then in the area. And so what we see in terms of monuments in modern day Luxor, Mabad Luxor, the Luxor Temple, Karnak, Valley of the Kings, Valley of the Queens, all of these areas are only about 25% of what existed in Luxor prior to the Persians. They did away with a lot of things. So excavation work is still really important in Luxor because a lot will be found. But they did bring the sugarcane. So the picture on the left is the sugarcane growing in Egypt on the left of the Nile, which gave Egypt more wealth because Europe in the 6th century before the Common Era could not afford sugar. To put things into perspective, it wasn't until the 19th and 20th century that sugar became less expensive and readily available in Europe, in places like France and in Italy. Even into the early 20th century, in Southern Europe, you would have to go to an apothecary to get a teaspoon of sugar because it was too expensive to use in a recipe. So a lot of the sweets were only eaten by the kings and the queens and the royal courts. But in Egypt, you started having heavy crops in the 6th century before the Common Era. And then the map on the left shows kind of how this sugar would be used and exported around the world. The next slide talks about different caliphates that influenced Egyptian cuisine the most. And I would love to spend hours on each one because, you know, when we talk about the cuisine of different cultures today, we talk about what is Italian and what is Egyptian and what is Spanish, but it really doesn't even touch the surface of what and why these cuisines are similar yet different. But when you talk about the different empires, and especially in places that had Islamic influence, when you talk about the different caliphates, then you really get to understand more, because these borders of the caliphates and the borders of the empires were much wider than our nationalistic borders today. So briefly, to go through, just to understand, each modern Muslim country had different combinations of Islamic caliphates. And that's why they have similarities, but differences. So the ones that were prevalent in Egypt were the Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Spanish Umayyads, the Aghlabids, the Fatimids, and the Ayyubids. These were the main ones. And you can learn a little bit more about these in this book called The Annals of the Caliph's Kitchen. It's written by my friend Nawal Nasrallah from Iraq. If we go to the next slide, we can see the Spanish Umayyads. So this was Abdul Rahman, and the Spanish Umayyads, they collectively ruled Spain from the 8th to the 11th century of the Common Era. Now, a lot of their work gets fused into what we call Moorish cuisine. I don't use that term because it's not politically correct for many reasons. But the Spanish Muslims, or the Umayyads, brought a lot of the ingredients from Egypt and from the Arabian Peninsula all the way through Morocco and then up until Spain. So we can see a lot of influence in that region. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that a lot of the spices during this time were what built the wealth through North Africa and through southern Spain. And the next slide talks about a gentleman named Ziryab. So Ziryab's real name was Abul Hassan, but he went by the name of Ziryab, which was his nickname. It meant blackbird, because he had such a beautiful voice like a blackbird. And he was what we would call a trendsetter in Iraq. He worked for the palaces, courts. He would talk about fashion, music, art, all the kind of the daily living trends. And so he was very popular in the Abbasid courts in Iraq. So when they were trying to popularize and make the cuisine of Spain and the culture of Spain to be a little bit more notable, yep, we can just stay right on that slide. They wanted to make it a little bit more cosmopolitan. They hired this person to come from Baghdad and to go into southern Spain and to make Andalusia pretty much what it is today. And he laid all of the foreground for the music, for the food, for the fashion, and for what we know as Muslim Spain. So Ziryab brought with him rice, spices, okra, hibiscus, the lute, or we know as the oud, from Egypt, all the way through North Africa and into southern Spain. He founded the first school of flamenco. He introduced this type of music. He was the person who said that men should keep their hair cut short and that we shouldn't wear white in winter. And if we go to the next slide, we can see some of the similarities also in sweets. So the polverones and the montecados in the Spanish cuisine are actually originally the uraiba, or the shortbread that came from the Middle East and that he introduced with him into southern Spain. And those are two popular things today. And if we go to the next slide, we can see the spice trade routes and how they would have been taking place in this time also of Ziryab and through the 16th century. Everything from the Spice Islands in Asia, going through the Arabian Peninsula, up through northern areas of Egypt and Alexandria, and then they would go around the Mediterranean. So they would really, the hubs at this point were Alexandria and Constantinople, which is of course now Istanbul, and Venice. And these three cities became sister cities. They were all built on the wealth that the spices provided them with. And they helped to ensure that the spices went around. So the spices were much less costly for people in Alexandria to be able to eat them. But they were, for people in Venice, they were still very, very expensive, and in Europe, which is why now our modern Christmas cookies often have spices in them. And there's spices that maybe a lot of European people don't eat every day, but they eat them at Christmas. It's because of the cost. And if we go to the next slide, we see a look at what the empirical life in Baghdad would have been like at the time. And we also have the example there of an Abbasid coin. And this coin is very significant because this was not found in the Middle East. It was actually found in Stockholm, Sweden. And so it's on display in the museum there because it shows just how far the Abbasids traded in Europe. And they did trade with Sweden. One of the things that they traded was cardamom. And so cardamom became used very much in the Swedish confectionaries. And also the Abbasids took a lot of their influence in what is now Iraq from the Persians, from Iran. So we have a lot of recipes that have Persian type influence that then became popular in Baghdad, that then got diffused around the Muslim world, then Southern Europe, and then Northern Europe. And one of those is the cookies, which these are called kleisha, which are very similar to the ararish that Aida is going to make later, but they're a date-filled cookie that is still popular in Iraq today. If we go to the next slide, and we talk a little about the Fatimids. So this 10th century started caliphate that claimed their power through the lineage of the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, who was named Fatima Azhara. That's why they call themselves the Fatimids. They ruled much of North Africa, including Egypt and Cairo, and also Sicily. And they had a lot, they brought back a lot of the ancient Egyptian sweet traditions into Muslim celebrations, but also in Christian celebrations. And that's why a lot of these recipes fuse from many different places. So then we go to the, we can see a lot of these, what we call mulid trees, so the Halawiyat al-Mulid, that they have for like the Prophet Muhammad's birthday, the Mulid al-Nabi in Cairo, outside of the Al-Azhar Mosque, which was also named after Fatima Zahra. And they became popular in Italy and Greece and Spain. So we have torron in Spain and torrone in Italy that everybody's going to be eating now for Christmas, also linked to the Fatimids and to the Prophet Muhammad's birthday because of this time period. Another cookie, if we go to the next slide, the Fatimids brought and kind of brought back into fruition. We go one more slide forward, we can see the kak. So the kak they're these middle cookies that you see during the, that are in the middle kind of slide there. This is from the Venus Patisserie in Alexandria. The kak were an ancient Egyptian cookie, and it's an ancient Egyptian word that then got brought back with the Fatimids and introduced into Egypt and fused with the traditions after the Eid al-Fitr. So the Fitr is the, you know, the fast-breaking Eid, but it also, the Fitr has a lot to do with almsgiving and charity. So when the Fatimids reintroduced them, they used to put gold coins. The palaces would actually put gold coins in the kak and distribute them to the poor as part of their charity, or the zakat that they would give during Ramadan. And then afterwards, after the Turkish influence, we started replacing the gold coins with Malban, or the Turkish delight. So if we go to the next slide, we talk a little bit from the 16th to 18th century, the importance of the Turks in Egyptian cuisine, but also in the cuisine of the entire Mediterranean and much of the world at that time, because of the Ottoman Empire then got control of the wealth, then had a lot more sugar to dispense. And of course, we started seeing a lot more sweet confections and a lot more heavy doses of sugar in our recipes. The really sweet syrups for the baklava and things like that, more sugar in cookies, Turkish delight, and places that were under Ottoman Empire, like, you know, Yemen and the Arabian Peninsula, that maybe didn't have a really strong dessert tradition prior to the Turks, then started having their whole entire notion of dessert was from the Ottoman Empire. Whereas Egyptians already had them from ancient Egypt, but then the Ottoman Empire just kind of helped to reinforce it. And if we go forward to the next slide, this slide talks about biscuits. So it wasn't until the 17th century that biscuits became very, very popular and widespread in Europe. And that was because each of the palaces used to kind of pride themselves on their chefs and on the types of pastries that they had, based, of course, upon what the Ottomans were doing. And so even these cookies were much more simple by today's standards, and simple definitely compared to what the Ottomans were doing. For Europe, and for the amount of sugar and the amount of flour and the taxes that were still being imposed on wheat and on milling, these were very luxurious. And so the Savoiardi comes from the kingdom of Savoia in northern Italy. The Brussels biscuits, which we can see on the right in Belgium, they had the Lisbon biscuits. Many different palaces had their own style of biscuit, and that was kind of a symbol of luxury that started in and also led us to many of our Christmas traditions today. The etymology of the word cookie, as you can see on the next slide, actually comes from the Dutch word, which meant little cake. As the 18th and 19th century, the sugar became less expensive. Chemical agents, baking soda, baking powder, become much more readily available, and also chemical yeast. Then we see cookies become more accessible to people. Something where we have tea cookies. So these are actually semolina cookies that are in my Nile style book, and you can find anywhere in Egypt today. But then this is kind of the 19th century. By then, the world starts to see cookies differently, and they start to become part of our daily life. And if we go to the next slide, this now talks about Muhammad Ali, who was an Albanian soldier who was actually born in Kavala, Greece, who was part of the Ottoman armies, who then ruled Egypt and was viewed as being the father of modern Egypt. Muhammad Ali, and during his time, we also start to see kind of new systems of weights and measurements. Some people attribute them to Napoleon, but those new ways of weighing and measuring things definitely took their influence in the kitchen, because we use a very different system than the pounds and kilos and things that we use today. And if we go to the next slide, which is our last slide, it talks about 20th century bakeries and cafes that you can see in Egypt, which have this, huge variety of what we consider to be modern pastries, which many of them dated back to ancient Egypt, European pastries, which again, a lot of them had their roots in ancient Egypt, and Ottoman pastries, or, Turkish pastries with the phyllo and different types of things like that. So all of these can be found in modern Egypt today. Many of them can be found in Aida's cookbook, and they're the things that she's bringing back to life with her business every day. And the recipes can also be found in my book. So thank you all for your attention and for allowing me to share some of my passions. And I'm happy to take questions if there's still time for them.
I think Amy will have people put their questions in the chat, and you can answer them in the chat so that we can get on to Aida baking some of those beautiful things that you shared with us.
Okay.
So if there are a few questions there in the chat, so you can go in and answer them, and we may have time for some additional questions to both of you at the end of the baking demonstration. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Hello.
Here we are, Amy.
Aida.
And Aida. Can we see you now? Everybody see? There we go. Now everybody can see Aida and her kitchen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for. Okay, camera.
First, I want to let you know a little bit about Aida and her background. Now that you have all these visions of history and spices and dates dancing in your heads. Aida was born in Cairo, where she grew up the youngest of 8 children, and learned to cook and bake with her mother. Now she lives in Northern Virginia, and we are right in her kitchen. She's an active volunteer with several organizations supporting women entrepreneurs in the Washington area. as well as communities in Egypt, including Majdi Yacoub's Heart Center in Aswan, Egypt, the beneficiary of Aida's cookbook, Heart to Heart. If you have questions while Aida is baking, please put them in the chat. You'll also find some contact information and other information. Aida, it's all yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and giving me the chance to show you some of the cookies, or actually one cookie is very famous. And I would like special thanks for Baltimore, Luxor, Alexandria Sister City for allowing and arranging for this presentation. Special thanks for Amy, because with the beautiful presentation, you take me back everywhere while you're talking in this glimpse of time. Thank you so much for all your informative and beautiful representation, and talk about all the spices, which I'm going to use some of it today. Today, I'm going to talk about dates in Egypt. Dates is a very ancient fruit. They found it in fossil back again, maybe to 50 million years. And they found like the trunks of the trees, they found like the date itself. That date, it's really start to cultivate it in Egypt about 4,000 to 5,000 BC. And it was, the reason that date was like something really special. It's very easy to have it all year long, and easy, you know, like as a dry fruit. There is about 80 kinds of dates in Egypt. Of course, I wish like I know all of them, but I can introduce some very quick, and you can have this in your house. And nowadays, dates became so trendy, and you can have a lot of use. You can chop it, put it with your salad. You can use it for baking. You can have it stuffed. And today we're gonna do a few things with the dates. Some dates are really, every date has like a name, like they call sukkari, which is like very sweet from the word sukkar, which is like sugar. And there is this called agwa, which is like kind of like really dry, very chewy. It's kind of like a gummy, and it looks like, or it tastes like the one, as if like you put it in the oven and baked it. This one, this is what we're going to be using. They call it the king of dates. Why? Because of the size, because of the taste, because of the how much meat it has. Of course, date means a lot to on all religion. For Muslims, they used to break their fasting with like a couple of dates and like with a cup of water, and then they settle down a little bit and you know, start like to eat the dinner. So today we're going to be using this kind of date for baking. Okay, all these dates you can find them all over the place. It comes like everywhere, like in this like 2 pounds like boxes. So the cookies today I'm gonna you know, show you. It's called araish. Araish in Egypt. I hope you can see it well. I make them in different shapes, so it gives the plate kind of like interesting look. And I put some powdered sugar on some, so it looks very festive, and it's good for like around feasts and Christmas. Okay, and we use some of the spices Amy mentioned. I use in my cookies anise seeds, anise powder, if you can get it, and I use, this is the anise powder, and this is the anise seed. And I use cardamom. This is the pods. So just like, you know, you know where you see it in bags in the stores, you can bring it and grind it in this like spice grinder, or you can buy it ready like this in the stores. Even like you can order it now from Amazon, they have everything. So this is the way it looks like, and I like it this way. I use a little bit of it because it has like a very strong like aroma in it. And as Amy said, like, you know, you buy it fresh because, or like you can grind it fresh, so it stays with this, it has like this aroma and oil in it. We're gonna use some seeds for garnishing. It's habbat al-baraka or love in a mist, or some people, they call it black sesame, but it's not. Some people, they call it nigella. This is the name of it, like the botanical name of it. And we can use for garnishing toasted sesame, Why toast it? You can use untoasted sesame, but I like to toast the sesame because it brings all this like nice aroma, like a toasty flavor. So it makes difference with your cookies, and that's why your cookies can taste like, you know, it has this distinguished taste of the sesame. Also, we're going to have some dipping, I call it date balls, and we're going to dip it in coconut. We can dip it in vermicelli, chocolate, or we can dip it with chopped walnut and cinnamon. So, and also included, this is like really amazing thing you can do home. It's very easy, very simple. It's the candied orange peel. The recipe is included. It's very easy. You can't go wrong with that. It has too many ways like to enjoy. So let's start with the dates. I prefer to use the date or prepare the date before you start your baking. Why? Because sometimes it's very soft. It's kind of like hard maybe to deal with when it's really soft. All you have to do, I'm going to show you like a couple. You can just like open it. I hope like you can see how soft it is. You don't need a machine or anything. You take the seed out and you can do like same. Okay, and I would rather I prefer like to do the whole box, and whatever left over, you can do other things with it, or you can actually keep it like this in wax paper or parchment paper for later use. And I like to do it this way. So usually I do this like a day before, 2 days before, and get it ready. So it's kind of like easy like to handle. So when you do this, you can put a little bit of oil, make it easy like to see like how easy it is. Like see, like you create this like paste or pasty. This like, okay. So this is, and then what we're gonna do, because it's too sticky, I'm gonna create these balls first, and then it will be ready for me when I do my. So we're gonna just like round it. I think this is the size of like a grape, okay? And then you can do it. And you see like why this is darker, because we just like did it today or now. Usually when it lasts, when it stays in your refrigerator, it turns like dull, a little bit like this, but it's the same, believe me, okay? Don't worry about it. And see, we're gonna do that. See, like it's easy. You try like to make it like, just like same size as you match. The reason I want to make it small, date is consume a lot of sugar. It's very sweet. A lot of people now, they watch their calories, they watch their weight, and you know, but it's a very healthy fruit. You can't go wrong with it. So now we're gonna, so I did this before, all these balls, and then, so this is what I want to show you this. I prepared this a couple of days ago. It's still like very soft. Look at that. Very easy to handle too. So date is the good thing about it. You can have it for like months in your refrigerator. If when you get it out and it's very hard, sometimes it feels like a rock, you zap it in the microwave, put a little bit of oil on it, and like for 30 seconds, that's it. And it will become like fresh again. So this is like, you know, the date. So now we're gonna go to the cookies, the dough. What I do, I mix all dry ingredients together first. So this is 3 cups of flour. And 1/4 cup of sugar. And we're gonna do that like anise seeds, one teaspoon of anise seed, or 1.5. Some people, they don't like the feeling of like seeds under like in their teeth or something, so you can use the powder. So I mix. I use like 1 and like 1/2 of this. And you don't want to overpower your cookies with all the spices, especially if you're not familiar with it yet. And this is the anise. We're gonna do, I think, anise. We need like 1 teaspoon of anise here. And a spoon and a half, teaspoon and a half. What is it? Teaspoon and a half? Yeah. Oh, teaspoon and a half. Okay. Yeah. Of
Baking powder.
baking powder. And then we're gonna mix it before we put the liquid to it. Okay, just to make sure. And so just like a quick mix, you know. And then this is again, the final dish. It has different shapes. And if you want to be creative later on, you can have it every shape with different spices. Maybe you can have the triangle one with only anise, and the other one with the cardamom. And then the round one, maybe you can add cinnamon to the dough, you know? So this is just like, you know, and see how beautiful it is. It's very small, it's very like enough. It's kind of like 2 bites. So you're gonna like avoid like wasting. You know, people sometimes when something really big, they take a bite or they try like to break it into halves and something. So it's like miss everything around. So this one, you can go wrong. Big guys can have it in 1 bite. So anyway, so what we're gonna do, we prepare that, and then we're gonna put the liquid, which is like milk, melted butter, and oil. And the good thing about these cookies, it can be vegan, totally vegan. Okay. You can replace the butter with oil. You can replace the egg wash with even any kind of milk or the milk imitation. Or you can have the, there is sometimes comes in powder and like you mix it with water, that's the imitation, okay? Sometimes the dough is a little bit like crumbly. So it's like nothing wrong with that. You can add either some milk, like maybe like a spoon of milk or something, or a little bit of oil, just to make sure, yeah, this is just like needs a little bit of oil. Yeah. And then we're gonna, yeah, this is good. So a little bit more oil. So again, the reason is it's easy to add a little bit. Then when the dough is very soft, you still can fix it by adding a little bit of flour. Okay. So we're gonna give it like a good mix. Now we're gonna like create some space here, you know, for like the serious business now. So usually I don't like to use my countertop for one reason. It's very easy to clean after you finish. So instead of like, because this is like very greasy. So I use like a parchment paper. And I will show you, we're gonna create that look first. This like, this looks like we're gonna create like a log, and then we're gonna cut it, and we're gonna get this like way. I use this because it has like too many ways. When you have like a really soft dough, sometimes it's very hard if you want to flip it or fold it. You have to use your hand, and sometimes it's like destroy the dough or like the look. And so here's the. And again, if you don't have that machine, you can mix that with the. I will show you the dough. Unfortunately, it doesn't, like you can give it like a last kneading. Just need a couple or make sure. I think maybe a little bit of oil again. Yeah. So. Sometimes when you measure the flour, sometimes you pack the measuring cup, like you do this, and sometimes it's filled a little bit, it's heaping a little bit. So sometimes you need a little bit of, so this is the dough. We're gonna, this is 3 cups, okay? So we're gonna like separate it.
What kind of oil?
Corn oil. And milk, actually I use regular milk or 2% milk, but for people like vegan, They can use almond milk, they can use coconut milk, but coconut milk will make the cookies taste like coconut. So, and you can use rice milk, any kind of milk you're familiar, you like, you can use, okay? So, you know, and I just like do it just like for, you know, just use like my hand and my eye, like judgment. If you have a scale, a lot of people, they have small scales like this. You know, I don't, because like maybe I bake a lot, so I'm like familiar with the, I feel with the dough. So anyway, so we're gonna start with one part. So again, I use this roller, I love it. This roller comes with different discs, different sizes like this. It depends how thick or thin you want your dough. All you have to do, just like roll over the dough, that's it. So I use the second one, and everyone has the size. This is 1/16 of an inch. This is 1/4 of an inch. This is 3/4 of an inch. And you just like replace them on the both sides. It's easy. Okay, here I use this one. I think it's 1/4 or something like that, but I think it's, yeah, 1/4 of an inch. So we're gonna do that. So I like parchment, I like to use on paper because I can manipulate the paper like this. So I don't have like to go this way or that way or like reach out. So it's like all within my reach. So we're gonna do this. Again, it looks kind of like not even at the beginning. See, like all I do just like press and roll, and that's it. I don't have to do anything else. Now, I'm gonna create like a good rectangle, about 6 inches by 10, 12 inches long. So I wanna just like with a knife, I wanna just like make like a good, you know, a good like shape. Okay. And you make sure like you don't press so hard because you don't wanna like shape the thing. And now, you can actually put this back again in the middle, like that. Again, this is going to be like all even now. Look at that. So you don't have to worry about all this like edges. Okay.
How thick is your dough?
This one is, I think it's, I use this, it's 1/16 of an inch.
So the dough
It's
itself
like
is
a quarter inch maybe.
so the dough itself is 1/16.
Yeah, because we're gonna fold it, so it's gonna be just like 3 layers. You have to make sure with that. Now, you remember this part I told you I like to prepare before? So it's very easy. I make it like look like a square, and then I'm gonna cut just like, you know, just like a little bit like that. Again, if you don't have to do this, even we're gonna try with like a piece we just like make. Okay, so you hold that piece and try to cover in the middle 1/3 of the dough. If the dough is like 4 inches or 6 inches, so make it like 2 inches. Again, it doesn't have to look perfect or anything, just don't worry about it. You can do this. Again, you can create like 1/4 of an inch. So, and unless if you really like the filling too much, you can have it like thicker. So whatever it is, but I think this is a good combination. So it's not like too sweet for you. Okay, here. So we can use that. See, like with your hand, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it will be perfect when it's baked. Trust me. So this is it. Try to avoid the edges. Okay. And if you have like a missing part, we can like, it's like a Play-Doh. You know, I have fun with that. And this is like, and now with this one, we're gonna hold the paper. See, like, imagine like you're doing this on your countertop. How are you gonna fold it? You're gonna do it like with your fingers, gonna break. It's gonna be just like pain. So what I do like that. I covered like part of it, and then I do like that. And don't be afraid of your dough. Just like be adjustable. Yeah, and then it's kind of like folded. And you always, when you have any cookies with filling and you fold it close, all this fold has to be under. like that. Now, you know, it's kind of not even, but we can fix it. Okay, so with your palms like this, you can do this. You can tap, you know, and here it is. And, or you can do it with this, sideways like that. And then we're gonna remove it. We're gonna move it back to the baking sheet. We're gonna bake it for 350 for 30 to 35 minutes. We're gonna hold it like carefully like that, and just like move it like here it is. Now we're gonna make another one because I want to show you. Maybe you can cut this so I can show like. Okay, so we're gonna do this like angled like this. When you cut, press down. Press down. Don't like drag. Don't like do this like movement. Just press down and don't separate because it's gonna be almost separated when it's big. And you wanna hide the dates so they won't get like dry. So you do that. Angled is good. I like angled. It gives it like more like a fancy look. And now we're gonna brush that egg wash. Okay, I do this just like to cut down in the time. So, and then I do this. The other thing I like to use parchment for baking because see, like sometimes eggs is so messy, and when you bake it for like half hour in the oven, all these eggs stick to your pan, and you have to soak it and clean and soak and clean. So you know, I like this way. And then we're gonna garnish with sesame. Okay, here. And then when it's all baked, it's gonna look really good. The egg wash gave it like a really good shiny look, and it's gonna give it like shiny look. It's gonna give it like more like a fancy and like well made like cookies. And then we're gonna try the other part very quick. Okay, again. This way, we're gonna repeat same. So I hope you see this clearly here. This roller, you can find it at Walmart. You can find it online. You can see it. You can find it at Bed Bath & Beyond. It's everywhere, and it's really like if you are into baking, you're gonna love it.
Does it have a special name, that roller?
No, I mean it's next to the kitchen stuff, yeah. Like you know the measuring cup, and like I see it all the time. Like again, you remember this like remaining pieces? We're gonna do that. I'm gonna send you some of these cookies. Again, maybe some people they don't like certain spices, so maybe you eliminate. You can put, you know, you can put more or less, or actually nothing. The cookies still like really like good. Okay, so I'm gonna have that again. Again, this is the good thing about it, because when you do it before, so it's easy, so you don't have even to do anything. It's in here. It's like slicing cheese. Okay, this is maybe. Yeah, I think this is good for now. Okay, and then I'm gonna fold, press, turn around, do the same thing. Again, if you see it like a little bit like over, like or open, still just like pinch it with your fingers. And actually, sometimes even if you have a leftover dough, you can actually patch it. Okay, and then we're gonna flip. Again, we're gonna do that. Make it like even, so it will cook the same. Again, carefully. Okay. And then we're gonna do the other shape, the triangle. Okay. So do that this way, this way, this way. You can create any shape you want. And then we're gonna do the round one, which is like the easiest for a lot of people. And you can do it. Okay, and then we're gonna brush again. And maybe to make it like look a little bit different, you can make sure to cover the sides. So all the color will come like unified. And then we're gonna do Nigella. You can do whatever you like. You can need to put anything. Okay, and then we're gonna bake. When you bake something has filling, it has to be always on the top shelves. Why? Because if you put it in the middle shelf, by the time you reach the good golden color, it's more cooked in the back, in the bottom, and then it might even be just like burning a little bit. And it makes the filling really hard and chewy. So your cookies, it's kind of like maybe it could be ruined, or maybe you have, you know, you're stuck with it until you finish. So we're gonna have it on 350. And
Aida, do you ever, or do Egyptians generally, put anything besides dates in these? Do you fill them with anything but
yes,
dates?
there is a kahk, the one Amy mentioned. We stuff it with Turkish delight, or I can make a dough. If someone is interested, maybe I can send it to them. It's with honey, flour, butter, and crushed walnut, and it becomes like a dough, like it comes like this. And you can stuff the kahk with it, like the butter cookies. Butter cookies doesn't have oil. Butter cookies has to be really soft, you know, like Christmas cookies, or you know, it doesn't have to have.
Should you put nuts in any of these kinds of cookies that you've made today?
No, this one no, just sesame. Yeah, and again, like sometimes people they have it with a little bit salt and cumin, and it became like sweet and sour, or like, you know. So again, you can be your own creator. Believe me, you're gonna like try things. I put in some of them I put cloves too, but you know, it's kind of like people has to. So comes out like this. Okay, is that clear? Good. Okay. So now we're gonna do the easy part now. Oh, I want to show you something before I forget. Do you remember I told you don't separate them? See, sometimes like it's easy. Actually, it's like separated, but with a knife you can go through it again like that. Yeah, that's it. And then the dates is like good inside. It's never dry. It's really like nice combination. And same thing here. Sometimes the dough, when it rises in the oven, it's stick on the bottom together again. And this is it. So this is the other one here. You know, and see like the under, it's like the bottom is like the top. If you put it in the middle, you will see this much darker, and it will affect the filling inside. So now we're gonna do like the easy one. Maybe a lot of people, they will, you know, I will tell you something. I feel like, I feel this dough is like a little bit dry, so I want to show you something. No, actually it's good. So we're gonna clean this. Okay, so now, yeah, it's good. So now we're gonna have that dough, the piece of dough, almost 1.5 times the date. Like, look at that. Okay, and then we're gonna round it, and we're gonna squeeze it so hard, like that. And then we're gonna put the date ball, and then close it using our tip of our fingers. And again, you remember that part has to be under, and then we're gonna just like do like that, and maybe like press it a little bit to make it look not like a whole like round, but it's okay. It could be totally round again. So, and we're gonna like place it here. I want to show you something just for the fun of it. This stuff in Egypt, okay, And we have like some gadgets. We grow up with it. It's like so much fun. Maybe this is hard to find, but I want to share this with you. So this one, it has already a shape. And what we do like that, and we press, and then we push. So look, it makes like a nice shape here. But this is, you know, you don't have to have this, but I just want to share it with you. It comes in different sizes, it's different shapes. And the other one is really cool. Looks like tweezers with like a serrated. And again, we're gonna do that. Again, press, put the ball and close. And then round, but when you round, you don't round it like this, so this part will come in the side. Just like make this like slow motion things, like, you know, like horizontal motion, sorry. And then, I mean, this one, I grew up doing this, helping my mom in the kitchen. And I used to be like pain in the neck when I was like 6, 7 years old. They used to give me this and give me a piece of dough, and I put on the side, you know, I sit on the side and keep like doing all these different shapes. But again, this is one, it's like fun. So anyway, so what we're gonna be doing, we're not gonna do this because maybe some of you, they don't have this. Okay, so we're gonna like try like to do, and then finish and put it like apart, like, you know, maybe this 3 cups of flour, they will make you about like 40 cookies. It's a lot. So if you want to make more, you can double the amount. If you don't want, like, I like to use like small dough because I don't want to get back tired, especially if I'm learning a new recipe. Okay, and again, we're gonna just do that. This one, we're gonna just, I like to do this in different way. Just put the thing, the wash on the side and make it drip. But, you know, because it's like round, hard, like to cover all the sides.
Do you use a convection or a regular oven? We had a question.
No, I use a gas oven.
Gas
yeah, and then I can put like seeds, any kind of seeds here. Now, again, we're gonna bake it on the top shelf, 30 minutes to 35 minutes. You have to watch your oven because some ovens are more hot than the others. Electric is different. Medium is, and here it is. This comes like that. Okay.
And your egg wash, when you wash those with eggs, is that just egg yolks or do you mix them?
No, I use the one in the stores, like it's the liquid eggs. Sometimes people, they use the regular egg, but you have to beat it hard, you know, but I like to cut corners, you know, make it easy. Now, you remember those, okay, you have like some, date left. So what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna dip some. We're gonna just like have some with the, you know, brush it with oil so the stuff will get like stick to it like the coating. And I'm using shredded coconut. I'm using vermicelli, and I'm using crushed walnut with cinnamon. And then you just like dip it, and sometimes even you can be just like more creative and put like, you know, oh, this is too big, put like a piece. It's, the bowl is like so small. So if you have like what you call it, a pistachio, like small pistachio, you can put it. Actually, I have pistachio. Actually, this is the, okay, here, yeah. And then we can put it in this little doilies. We can put this in little doilies here. Okay, and then we're gonna make another one with vermicelli. Another one here. And we can do one with coconut in here. And we can repeat this. And this one you can keep in like a tight container in the refrigerator, even like in room temperature. It's less. Okay. Also, yeah, and maybe we'll make another one with walnuts. Or we can.
We have someone asking if you can just push it through the screen. She's waiting.
Oh, this one? Oh, okay. You can, sure. We always can do that. It's easy to do this. And we can put like an almond, or here it is. You see it? I hope it's, this is dark because like it's a chocolate, but maybe the kids will love it. And again, you can actually mix spices to these dates. You can put, I always put cinnamon. Whenever I make the dough, I always put like a sprinkle of cinnamon, always. So this is it. And it's really like beautiful. It's like a fancy, fancy, fancy. Also, I'm gonna show you something else. It's really cool. Remember those dates? Okay, I'm sorry, I have to reach out. Those dates, again, it's different kinds, sukkari, ajwa, and medjool. Now, we're gonna stuff it with, this is hard. I mean, I don't recommend to do this. I like actually the medjool because it's soft and it's good. And we can put like this and close it a little bit. And again, use doilies. And this is really make a good statement. I'm gonna show it to you after I make like a couple, because I think I'm running out of time here.
That's right.
And okay, the orange peel, the candied orange, you have the recipe there, and the orange makes it like really like the combination is really good. I'm gonna make another one with orange so you can see it good. Again, that orange peel, it's amazing. I love it because you can dip it with chocolate. You can have it with like your ice cream, like cut it, chop it, like have it like with ice cream. Okay. And we're gonna make one with walnuts.
We have one guest who has asked where you can buy these kinds of pastries, and you're welcome to mention the places where you sell your own.
Actually, I don't see araish here. In Egypt, it's like everywhere. All bakery stores, like bread. Whenever you go to any bakery, you will see araish. In here, I don't know, but I don't know. Like it's kind of like I've never seen it here. So this is very, very Egyptian. And you know what? The good thing, you can have it in your house. It's going to be something one of a kind. You can brag about them. And you say, oh, this cookie is like amazing, and you can find it anywhere, okay? Or you can order it from me if you want. Okay, so this is like, you know, here it is. This is with walnut. This is with the orange. And this is with the almond. I stuck like the tiny guys here with the almond. Okay, and that's it. So
is there anything you can do with the date pits?
No, you don't bite it because it can break your teeth. In Egypt, actually, the pits, they crush it and they feed it to horses and camels. And and this is one of the, in Egypt, like they use every part of the tree. The branches, like in Christianity and Judaism, in their feast, like, you know, Palm Sunday, and in Egypt, like, you know, there is another thing I want to share with you very quick. You can have like only two dates with a cup of milk, your favorite milk. Put it in the blender and put like a dash of cinnamon. You have the best shake. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful way to stop.
Thank you very much, Aida.
Thank you very much, Aida.
Oh, thank you, and happy holidays, everybody, and stay safe. You can reach me on my you know, Facebook page, or my phone, or
your book.
Yeah. So
Thank you
hope you
both,
enjoyed it.
Amy and Aida. You've got some information in the chat, so you'll be able to see the contact
them. And if you have a question while you're cooking
and you don't have an answer, keep that email of which you received the link for today, and just write it, and I'll get it to Aida and Amy, and you've also got their contact information. So thank you all very much. We hope to see you at future events, cooking events, and other, and through this holiday season. We wish you all good health, gratitude, and a new year filled with good food and joy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much for this, Karen. And I see my friend Ifoma in London. Hi, Ifoma.
She was watching you from London.
Hi, how are you? Nice meeting you on Zoom. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for joining, and I hope you learned something.
Aida and Karen. Yes.
Thank you.
Debbie and Patty are sisters, and we are Lebanese in
Ahlin.
Yes.
Shukran jazilan.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. And I hope you you try this. If you need any help, don't, it's easy, very easy, easier than it looks actually.
Inshallah في المستقبل.
Inshallah.
بعدين.
Hi, Nadia.
Debbie chairs the Middle East American Advisory Group in Montgomery County, and we worked on a book author talk in the summer, and we're working on another one in the next spring. So and Brenda Randolph chairs Civil Africa Book Award. So we have lots of people doing lots of interesting activities, and we'll be sure you're on the mailing list for all of these activities. Thank you very much to everybody who came, and enjoy fixing some day cookies in the next few days.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, if I may say that, I'm gonna send you some, and I need you to hear from you. What do you think? So maybe when you taste it, when you see it, you will get like a better idea what you're gonna be making. And next time, maybe you can send me some of what you're making.
And take pictures and send us the pictures. We'll
post. Please.
Yeah.
It's been a fun morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.